All right, welcome back, everybody. Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. We are here with our friend Mark Feinman. Hey, Mark.
Hey there, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for being with us. We are here with you today on your topic, part of our What I Love About series, What I Love About Elvin Jones. We are recording these sessions for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education and Outreach. Everybody is muted for the courtesy of the session, but if there are questions, please don't hesitate to use the chat feature, and I will help moderate that and get those questions to Mark. Thank you, everybody who's been following along as we build this wonderful treasure and resource. You can access the archived videos after these live sessions at clearwaterjazz.com, the education and outreach section, in a resource that we call the Studio, and that's brought to you by Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners, as well as Duke Energy. And if you prefer to listen rather than watch, you can listen to these sessions on the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast, wherever you stream your podcast, brought to you by our friends at Marine Max Clearwater. And all of these upcoming sessions are listed at the website. Mark has done a bunch of them. He's been a wonderful addition to these sessions. When you go to the Studio, you'll see sessions such as a history of rhythm section and collaboration, which Mark did along with his colleagues from La Lucha. The quarter note system, a rhythmic guide to creativity, exploring triplets, comping, soloing, and coordination, playing better with brushes, how, when, why, and where. What I Love About series, including Papa Joe Jones, Max Roach, and today Elvin Jones. Mark is a member of La Lucha, a Tampa Bay-based trio. Their music ventures into a wide variety of musical styles and offers a really fun mix of genres under the jazz umbrella. They have received countless accolades and have extensive national and international performance experience, including several plays at the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Music Festival. Please visit laluchamusic.com for more information about the band, getting in touch with them or with Mark, and about their new album, Everyone Wants to Rule the World. And they have a new holiday album out as well, which is fantastic. Mark is a drummer, he's a composer, an educator who is inspired by individual human experiences and a diverse range of musical influences. He has extensive performance experience playing with many wonderful musicians. Mark was awarded an Emerging Artist Grant from Creative Pinellas, the Think Small to Think Big Grant, a Jazz on Edge 13 and 13 commission, and a Project Gen Yes residency to present a multimedia project raising awareness for Alzheimer's disease at the Studio 620. He is also a drum set instructor at St. Petersburg College and a regular participant in Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education and Outreach, including the Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions and a new education program that we started this year called the Drum Roll Series, Fun with Jazz and Drums, which delivers a really, really unique experience to underprivileged youth that participate in aftercare in Pinellas County. And we did the pilot program at the Pinellas Sheriff's Police Athletic League this summer and into the fall, and it was absolutely wonderful. Mark, welcome back. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being a special part of our education and outreach. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I want to give a shout out to the Clearwater Jazz Holiday and Foundation and the Young Lions Master Virtual Sessions. I absolutely love being here. I'm so glad that everybody is here today. Wherever you are, please comment and let us know. And again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to chat in the box and somebody will let me know if I don't see it. Wherever you are, I'm happy to be speaking about music, and I'm glad that you're happy to listen about it. I want to think of this as a conversation about some of my favorite drummers that I've been influenced by. these are sounds of musicians. They creep into my playing, their energy, their emotion, their feel. The records they've been on have influenced how I hear music and how I want to play music and compose music. And there seems to be a theme running between all of these drummers. I started off with Papa Joe Jones, and I went into Max Roach. Now, I did mix up this week's and next week's. Next week will be Art Blakey. That's a surprise. Next week is Art Blakey. Art Blakey would normally come before Elvin Jones, but they kind of are contemporary, so I'm going to put Elvin first. He's a very, very exciting drummer, and let's just dive in. So if you've done my sessions before, any of my classes, you know that I love PowerPoint. So here we go. Let's dive in. Young Lions Jazz Masters virtual session. What I love about Elvin Jones. Okay. It's the honesty you apply to your playing that makes music enjoyable. The style of the music has little to do with it. It's only honesty makes it beautiful. And that's Elvin's words himself. He's a really beautiful drummer and also a beautiful human being. We're going to find out more about him. Elvin Ray Jones, he was born in 1927 in Michigan. Just like Papa Joe Jones, and the same thing as Max as well. He went to the circus as a young child and discovered an interest in drumming from seeing the circus groups. And I had mentioned before, the bass drum player who was with Ringling Brothers was the highest paid and most famous musician at that time traveling with the circus. And he was right there, center, and you couldn't miss him, you couldn't miss the music, and it makes the show exciting. And also, you couldn't just turn on the TV, really you could rarely turn on the radio and really get that exciting feeling. You had to see live entertainment to really get that feeling of what music sounds like live. And Elvin, Papa, and Max, when they were younger, if you went to a live event, even if you went to the movies, you saw an organ player, that was very exciting. Sometimes before a movie, there was a live musician, but at the circus, it's happening right there, forefront. And so he became interested in music. He also had two older brothers, Thad Jones, the great trumpet and flugelhornist, and composer, arranger with the Vanguard Big Band, which is still happening under a different composer arranger now, which is Jim McNeely. And his other brother is Hank Jones, who's a fantastic pianist, jazz pianist, who was, all of them were playing up until, the end. Okay, he was in the Army from 1946 to 1949, and when he was discharged from the Army, he borrowed $35 from his sister. This is in 1949. $35 at that time was equivalent to just under $400, and this was enough to help him get a drum set. He wasn't making enough from the Army bill to get a drum set, and he really wanted one in 1949, and his sister helped him. And there's some cool video where they have that conversation about it. We're going to see some of that video, but we're going to pass over that part. Okay, he gets the drum set, and I'm letting you know, I'm going to do some just brief history right now, and then we're going to kind of dive into some listening and viewing, and I'll kind of go back to some of this stuff through the class as well. So, and again, I talk fast, I talk a lot, and again, if you have questions, you can just jump in. I'm excited, so I hope you're excited. Bon hiver. He's now living in Detroit, and he's gigging around town. He's playing. He's recording his first album in 1955 with a local musician. And musicians come through Detroit. If they're on tour, they sometimes need to pick up, they need a pickup band. This is what happened then. It's what happens now. Musicians come through town, and you play with them, and you get to know them, and you hang. And one of those musicians was Miles Davis. He played with Miles just when he was about 21 and got to know him. And Miles was a big name then. He was, important in creating the bebop, era, along with Charlie Parker. And he had a record label with a bass player named Charles Mingus. And there were some really exciting things happening. And Miles, of course said, man, you should come to New York. You should come to New York. And Thad and his brother Hank Jones, they were already in New York. So when they knew guys were going to Detroit, he was saying, call my brother Elvin, El Ray, he can play. What they didn't know was he plays different than other drummers. And that's why I chose him. We're going to find out why he plays different. Okay, so Hank Jones is playing, his brother. I'm going to keep going to his brother, Hank Jones. Hank Jones was playing with Benny Goodman, the king of swing, right? He's running the one of the top 3 big bands, right? Count Basie, Duke, Benny Goodman. Look them up. You will thank me or somebody later. And he says, audition Benny. So the manager for Benny Goodman actually called the restaurant where Elvin Jones was playing regularly, like 5 nights a week. He had a steady gig for almost 4 years at one restaurant in Detroit. I don't think I have the notes with me on where that was. I'll have to find that out. But I'll let you know. It's very cool. And the owner was so excited, he said, I'll pay for your trip to New York. Like, I love Benny Goodman. I'm excited for you. And he ends up going, and he failed miserably. He did not get the part in Benny Goodman's group. There's actually a good quote, and I don't have it pulled up here. I'd have to do another share screen. But essentially, I'm going to paraphrase. Elvin says, I was allergic to big band drumming. It was not right for me. I didn't really want to do it, but it got me to New York, and it was a good experience. And so, it was a wonderful opportunity that he took, and he didn't get the part with Benny Goodman. But now, he's in New York City. So now he's going to hook up with those musicians that all came through Detroit. And one of them was Charles Mingus, the great bass player. My personal favorite composer and bass player in the jazz community is Charles Mingus. I remember, actually, when I was in high school, I studied with Frank Williams, who does many classes here, and we played a Mingus song in jazz band. I went to the high school he was teaching at to play in his band, and I had no idea who Mingus was, and my mom picked me up because I wasn't driving, and I said, okay, let's go. I have to buy a Mingus record. Wherever. We went to the nearest record store. I went in and bought Mingus and Mingus Oh Yeah. And we said, well, let's put Mingus Oh Yeah in the car CD player. And my mom says, why is this called Mingus Oh Yeah? And, it starts with a bass fill, and then you hear Charles Mingus going, oh yeah, oh yeah. And we said, okay, that's why it's named Oh Yeah. And it could have been Elvin Jones on that recording because they played together many, many times. Mingus was actually playing with Bud Powell, a really, really famous bebop pianist at that time. Another quick funny anecdote was Bud was getting old. He was also ill. He had some mental illness, and he could not remember songs. And so the funny part is that Elvin would whistle the beginning notes of whatever song it is that they were going to play. And the audience said the audience couldn't hear him whistling, so he would whistle the song because he could see that Bud was just staring. And then the guys in the bandstand would kind of laugh, and he would immediately go into the song. And he needed Elvin to whistle the first few notes of that song in order for him to remember it. He was also playing with Sonny Rollins, and it says here, Miles sub. So he wasn't playing regularly with Miles. He actually had some interesting feud that nobody talks about with Miles. But he did sub on the gig with Miles, and when he did that, Miles really wanted Elvin to play with him. And Elvin really did not want to play with him. And if you hear his style of drumming, it's different from how Miles felt and heard music. Miles was going in a different direction that was more transparent, more loose. It wasn't that hard bop style. It wasn't very aggressive that you might hear in John Coltrane's music. And so he said no, but he does show up on many Miles recordings, and we're gonna go into a little bit of that. Okay, so the most important thing that you have to know about Elvin Jones is that he played in the great quartet, the John Coltrane Quartet. In 1960, he actually met John Coltrane on that gig that he subbed with Miles. That makes sense on why I put that there. He subbed with Miles Davis, and Coltrane was in the band. Coltrane is on the great Miles album, which has a name that it's escaping me now, but I lose points on my jazz license for not remembering the name of the most famous jazz album in the world. Kind of Blue. That's it. Kind of Blue. I hope I got it before the buzzer ran now. Okay, so Coltrane's on Kind of Blue. He meets Elvin subbing for Philly Joe Jones, not Papa Joe Jones, Philly Joe Jones. Papa Joe Jones became Papa Joe Jones because of Philly Joe Jones. They had to have separate names, so everybody called the older guy Papa and the guy from Philly, Philly Joe Jones. Okay, I said that in an earlier class. That's for another time as well. Elvin is now playing with Coltrane, the most important thing that you need to know. In 1960. Between 1960 and 1966, he records more albums than he ever has recorded in his career, including 11 albums in 1965 that were released under the Impulse label. Impulse or Riverside really recorded Coltrane, mostly Impulse. In 1966, Coltrane's music was going in a different direction. He really wanted to explore some of this multi-tonality, more multi-metric, just wanted to explore what he could really do in searching for something. So he added another drummer to the group. It didn't really blend with Elvin too much, and so he respectfully stepped out of the group and decided to go and start some projects that he wanted to, including the Elvin Jones Jazz Machine, which had a lot of different members in it between 66, 67, all the way up to his passing in 2004. And in that time period, he was playing as a leader, as a sideman. He was teaching a lot. He was doing a lot of clinics. He would do free concerts in prisons across the United States. He felt that was important. And he received an honorary doctorate in 2001, in addition to becoming a Hall of Fame musician in Modern Drummers magazine in about 1995. He passed away in Englewood, New Jersey in 2004. That's just a few months after he played one of his last performances, which was at the Tampa Theater here in the Tampa Bay area. Let's go ahead and hear a little bit from Elvin. He's going to speak. This is from a very cool documentary. I own the VHS. Maybe I'll run and get it really quick. I can show you what it looks like, but it's very cool. It's from a documentary called Different Drummer. You'll hear from Elvin in the beginning, and then you'll hear him play. If for some reason you cannot hear the audio, please raise your hand and let me know.
I could never really accept the standard form, so I was in a way like a rebel, and I had a lot of, like I said before, I had a lot of severe criticism from playing like that. The word was out that nobody could play with me because I played too. They couldn't understand it.
Anytime a player plays against the norm, he's considered one who rebels against the tradition. And I guess Elvin might be considered a rebel from people who expect the norm to be heard all the time. My general sense of it is Elvin plays to a different drummer and has the nerve and the audacity, along with the talent and discipline, to develop this not so normal approach to the instrument that has, of course, in this time, revolutionized the entire drum situation.
Yeah, so that was the words of Ron Carter, who's still around and playing a lot, and made famous for playing with Miles for a really long time among many other musicians. And you heard Elvin himself. People didn't want to play with him. They couldn't understand him. He was playing, different things.
I could never really accept the standard.
All right. As an influencer, three things that really stand out to me are his polyrhythmic approach, his soloistic flow, and his education and how he teaches and speaks to musicians and to students. Not all musicians do that. You think all musicians may want to speak about how they perform and what they're doing, but not everybody does. And Elvin was very open about that. And you can see from the documentary, he always let people into his life to talk about music. What I mean by polyrhythmic approach is, and he speaks about this as well, which is he liked to take different rhythms and layer them. So each limb of his body is playing something different. If they're playing a song that's in 4/4, he's going to play in what feels like a 3/4 pattern. He's putting accents in different places. His snare is not always playing in the place that, used to play, drummers would rim click on 4. He's rim clicking all over the place. He's making each limb feel in a different way. And so there's multiple rhythms happening. You could hear from that solo he was playing in the beginning, he has a flow to it. It's not always very clear what the rhythms are, but what's clear is that the flow in which the river and the water is moving, it's just moving. It's just going, and you have to jump in it as well. If you ever hear him trade what's called trading fours, where the musician solos for counts of 4 bar, and then the drummer plays for 4 bars, and then he goes back and forth over the melody of a song. He sometimes would go over that 4 bars a little bit, and somebody asked him, the anecdote is, Elvin, why do you go over the 4 bars into the next 4 bars? And he said, well, I'm just not done with my story yet. So I always liked that. I mentioned Miles, one of his first recording dates in New York City, 1955. And here he is with Miles. He's still a young drummer. He's still trying to get how he plays out. And we're going to hear this. Charles is on the gig. Teddy Charles is on vibes. Britt Woodman on trombone. Here we go. Listen to some Miles. I'm going to stop there right when we get into Miles' solo. So this is on Debut Records, which was actually Charles Mingus's record label that he started. And so nothing very exciting, right? 10 years earlier, they're playing bebop. It's fast, it's exciting. This is, not even really hard bop. It's not really coming from, a gospel soul thing. They're playing standards from musicals, Alone Together. It's a wonderful, Great American Songbook tune. And there's nothing that stands out as really wild about Elvin. And one thing he talks about is that the vibraphone player, Teddy Charles, he used to play really, really soft. And so everybody was telling him to hey, let's play to him. Not really come down, but let's make sure we hear him. And so Elvin really couldn't do his Elvin thing. And it didn't really too much excite him on this record date, but he was excited to be playing with Miles. He had just moved to New York. I think I said it was 56, but he was living in his brother's room and his brother's hotel room when he came to do the Benny Goodman thing in 55. Okay, let's move on. So that was 55. Now it's 1957. He had gotten a steady gig on 52nd Street. He's playing with a lot of musicians. People are hearing him. Elvin is now playing with Sonny Rollins, who is the coolest, hippest dude happening at that time. Sonny Rollins is still the coolest, hippest dude happening now. But if I was to compare him to somebody, he was kind of like a Kanye West, for anybody who's wondering, what do I compare him to? He was wild, and he had a mohawk of Sonny Rollins, and he hung with Elvin Jones, and Elvin got to do his thing. This is a harmony-less group, meaning there's no instrument that's playing harmony, piano or guitar. It's just tenor sax, bass, and drums, live at the Village Vanguard, another jazz standard, softly as in a morning sunrise. Let's take a short listen.
With softly as in a morning sunrise.
Bring it down there. It goes on for another 6.5 minutes or so, but it's very exciting, and I really feel like Elvin's coming into his own and getting to hear sound, and he's playing brushes here, but he eventually goes to sticks, and there's trading, and you hear him going over those bar lines. You can even hear those fills that he's doing. It's different. It's not that bebop or even that hard bop style of precision and playing very strict melodically. He's really just playing flow over the song. All right, now we're in that 1960 famous group of John Coltrane's the quartet from the 60s. This still has the bass player Steve Davis. There's another bass player who joined the group a little longer named Jimmy Garrison. And Jimmy was more known as the bass player, but Steve and Elvin had a really good connection as well. McCoy Tyner on piano, John Coltrane on sax or on soprano or tenor. This is from a record called Coltrane Sound in 1960. The Night Has a Thousand Eyes. And a little sidebar about this tune: if you ever read this song in the real book, the way that it's written, like it's handwritten, all the music, and the text is sometimes hard to read. And for a really long time, I didn't know the name of the song. It looked like it said "The Meat Has a Thousand Eyes," and I didn't know. I used to call it "The Meat Has a Thousand Eyes" by John Coltrane, and it was the famous saxophonist David Pate that told me it's called "The Night Has a Thousand Eyes." The text, the manuscript was not great there. Okay, here's John Coltrane's "Night Has a Thousand Eyes." I'm sorry, jazz gods. I know it's a sin to turn Coltrane off or any music off, but I know we have a lot of things to go through. I'm sorry, whoever. It's pretty hypnotic, right? Like you're kind of in this like daze and fog of like, what is this groove? Like it's polyrhythmic. There's a lot of rhythms happening. It's not like a traditional Latin to swing song or traditional Latin groove. Drummers like Max, like we talked about last week, would play a traditional Latin groove. Elvin was playing Latin-ish. Oftentimes, if I've received a piece of music that I'm playing with musicians and they want something that is jazz Latin, they'll actually write a la Elvin or Elvin-ish. It's become a thing. And I know, okay, it's that kind of A Night Has a Thousand Eyes groove that he plays on many recordings, actually. But even when he goes to that swing, it's still really loose, and I almost think of his playing it very circular. And there's a reason for why he plays like that, and we'll kind of go into it. I think I have a cool... Okay, Here's a cool picture. I love this. This is Elvin Jones putting nails into the ground on the stage in front of his bass drum before a gig with John Coltrane, because it gets that intense, that there's so much movement. And he also didn't have a rug, or the venue didn't have a carpet. He didn't travel with one. And so he got a hammer and nails, and they put nails in front of the drum. He did. So the drum set did not move. There's a few misconceptions about his playing with Coltrane, and they said that because he played a lot, a lot of people think that maybe he played loud, or the band was just loud. It was too much, it was loud. There's a big difference between having a lot of energy and having a lot of volume. These are two different knobs. Like if you're in a studio, you can turn a volume up and down. And that one knob, less volume means, there's a lot less energy of the whole thing. But he could play really soft, but with a lot of energy. He could play really loud, but keep the energy low. And so he was able to really, loud with a lot of energy. And even when it was loud, think of cars. Cars it says you can go 180, 200 miles per hour. But is anybody really going that fast? I hope not. Maybe it's called headroom. And Elvin had a lot of headroom. If you always went the loudest and the fastest that you could go, you explode. And we don't want Elvin Jones to explode, or anybody, really. But he was able to take us there and bring it back. And so, much like a car, he knew how to control this volume and the energy. He was a master at that. All right, here's a live video. I want you to actually see what the Coltrane Quartet looked like. This is 1965. This is a really important year for jazz. This is a really difficult year in American history. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of things changing in music. I mean, the Beatles are the #1 thing happening on the radio. They've now come to the United States. John Coltrane is now speaking out and speaking for the African American community and what's happening in the United States. And the band backed him up, and they were all about it. Okay, so again, now we have Jimmy Garrison on bass. This is who I was saying replaced Steve Davis. Here it is, 1965, Belgium. And they often toured in Europe, as did many musicians, because they felt that they received the respect in Europe more than they did in the United States. I'm going to stop there. This song is 20 minutes long. I'm going to skip to minute 10. Already, minute 16. I'll skip toward the end. That's pretty wild. 20 minutes of just my favorite things. The famous Oscar Hammerstein and Richard Rodgers song from The Sound of Music. That's a really big part of jazz, big part of Coltrane was playing those standards. That standard, they actually recorded it only a year after it had come out in the musical, The Sound of Music. And they're playing it. They're taking this, pop song, this musical song, and they're playing it in the jazz realm. That still happens today. My band La Lucha, we take songs that's on FM radio or that comes out on Spotify, and we play it as because we like it, and it's our way of playing it. Elvin was doing this constantly with music in general. He played it the way he liked it and wanted to. Okay. One reason the way he played is that Elvin had synesthesia. He often saw colors when he played or when he heard music. It's pretty rare, but it's because we can connect with people around the world. We're finding that more people have synesthesia where they can see and feel colors. So here he is actually talking in that same documentary about the colors of the sounds, and it's what he's seeing and hearing and feeling when he's playing.
I get images sometimes, color images. The lowest, the bass tone, say a low D, would be purple. The C will be red, and the F will be yellow. The hi-hat can be like inside your body, your heartbeat, being always moving and always there and always very definite. The snare drum can be like a mishmash of colors. It's going to be a small kaleidoscope where colors change very rapidly, very high and very pastels and flickering like a diamond. The symbols are like when pebbles are splashed in a pool of water. A big splash or a ripple, and well, this is the kind of the image that you get from the symbols. You can see the colors flow out like that in circles. So it's very interesting. Here's another pattern. I think this is more related to reds and yellows here. That's more blue and green, I think.
So there's Elvin talking about the colors. Two people who have this that's not really spoken about a lot, I guess, and I heard about this in an interview, who are modern musicians, composers, are Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas. They composed and wrote all their music together. They're two modern pop musicians. She won, they took home all the Grammys last year. So if you're into Billie Eilish, they compose and often are experiencing things with color and feeling color, and their album order is actually in like a Roy G. Biv, the way they structured it. And when they went to the record label, they said, oh, you know, I think it should be like this. And they said, no, that makes no sense because this is red and that's yellow. And they said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, the way we hear the music is the colors that it should be in. And I think that's very interesting, and he composes that way as well. Okay. Here's a picture of Elvin Jones with Ginger Baker. There's a really cool video of them doing like a dual drumming thing. Ginger Baker, who was pretty wild rock musician, he used to, you know, invite drummers to his studio and do these filmed duels where he liked to, you know, like see if he could outplay them. And he never could, but you know, he tried. So essential listening. Speaking of duel. Elvin appeared as a villain in a movie in 1971, and after shooting this guy, he naturally took a drum solo. So let's take a look at this as in his film debut in 1971.
Oh, no. What are you waiting for?
Come on, Joe.
Now, Sonny.
Don't Sonny me, you bastard.
Now, who is this wants to get himself killed? What are you doing up here anyway? You should be home with your mother on the farm, taking care of the pigs and cows.
Enough talking, boy. Draw!
Okay, so he shoots him, and the band, and I apologize, I didn't tell you there was going to be firearms involved. There's actually a rock band playing in the saloon. Here they are, playing. They're all shocked by this, and then he takes the drummer's drumsticks and plays a solo. And they carry the other guy out. Oh no. I think that's great. Okay. So as a sideman, he played with a lot of people. Sonny Rollins, 57. Miles, Sketches of Spain. He does not play drums on this recording. He plays percussion. He was also a percussionist. Elvin did a ton of what he would call Mickey Mouse recording sessions for commercials and different film, soundtracks in New York. He did a lot of these, whether it was percussion or drums. He wasn't just like a famous jazz musician. He worked as a session guy. Coltrane, 1960. He plays on this cool record, Duke Ellington and John Coltrane. Also Coltrane and Johnny Hartman. Here's another really short story. This one comes from John Lamb, the illustrious bass player who lives in St. Petersburg and played with Duke Ellington himself. John Lamb told me that Duke was auditioning some drummers in the 70s, and so they flew Elvin out. They said, Elvin's going to join us for some shows. Again, Elvin said earlier that he was allergic to big band drumming. And he was just sight reading the book. It was out in Europe somewhere. I think Elvin finished a tour and he joined Duke. It did not go well. He did not play the Duke sound. He just played whatever he wanted. But he really everybody wanted to impress Duke Ellington. It's Duke Ellington, you know? I mean, he had played with him on this recording. He wanted to impress him. And everybody knew that he wasn't going to get the gig, and it was a good novelty moment. And so Elvin went up to John Lamb because they're next to each other on the bandstand. And Elvin, as you can see, has those big muscles. John said he went up to, Elvin came up to him and grabbed him by the shoulder and said, "How did I do?" And he said, "You did great. You did really, really well. I think he'll like you." He did not get the gig. But So, Duke Ellington, John Lamb, Elvin Jones. Some really good records to check out is A Love Supreme, famous record with Wayne Shorter, Speak No Evil, the 11 albums with Impulse and Coltrane in 1965. Later in his life, there's a skip here because he was a leader more, but he did record with Bill Frisell in 2001. It's a really, really wonderful record. It's his second to last recording. His last album was actually with a group with his own brother, Hank Jones, that he recorded in 2004 before he passed away. As a leader, there's many. These are only the records that I can speak to, that I know, that I love, and I listen to a lot. Together, Elvin putting it together, the ultimate Live at the Lighthouse. I can get all of this on a PDF for you if you want to check out, share with your friends, your class, whoever. These are really wonderful records, and they also feature some musicians that are still around today. They were young at the time. My takeaway, Elvin, here he is with the Jazz Machine. This is like circa 2003. He taught drummers and other instrumentalists that it's okay to be different, to be true to your sound and vision. Dynamics and energy are separate. We talked about that. And be carefree, playful, open your ears, and go. Just do what you want to do. It's okay. The greats have failed more than you have. That's because they've tried things. So you really, really need to fall. Remember, fail only stands for first attempt in learning. And it's okay to mess up. It's okay to fall on your face. There are recordings of Elvin where he's flipped the time and nobody knows where the time is. And I can guarantee that he's not embarrassed by it. I used to get embarrassed when I would mess up or not know where I'm at or the song doesn't sound good. It's okay now. You just go with the flow. That moment, either one, the audience doesn't know. Two, it goes somewhere unexpected. And it probably goes somewhere better than what you planned in the first place. So it's kind of like the Goofy movie, if you've ever seen it. So that's my PowerPoint. That's my presentation for the day. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation. That's Elvin Jones. Next week, we're going to go back a little bit to Art Blakey. So...
What a great presentation. Thank you so much, Mark. It was fantastic as always. Mark's going to be back with us the next 2 Mondays. Next one, Art Blakey, as he said. So stick with us and follow us, please, at clearwaterjazz.com on the education and outreach section. You can see all of these upcoming sessions. And what can I say, Mark? Any closing thoughts for our audience before we tune in again?
Yeah, listen to good music. Be together, even if it's streaming. Be safe and stay warm.
Yes, please be safe out there, everybody. Keep listening, keep being creative, keep practicing, keep playing. We hope you're finding good value in these resources. We sure are having a good time making them. For everybody who has participated today, thank you so much. And for everyone watching and viewing in the future, we also thank you for being a special part of this. Take care, Mark. We'll see you next time.